And Tomoji, go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you for having me. And my name is Tomoji, and I work with Wayne Tanabe. Probably you're all familiar with. And I moved here. Wait a second. I was at the Yamaha Technical Academy in Japan many years ago, and I was working as a technician at the music store, very famous music store there for 9 years. And then I got married in 1995, and my wife said, you know, President of the United States playing the saxophone, I think we should move. So we applied the green card. For the second year, I won the green card. So kind of lottery green card. So I was so lucky. And I moved here in New York City in 1999. So yeah, I'm here with great musicians, wonderful country, and I'm right next to the Trump Tower. I'm happy, and I saw that face. Anyway, so that's what I am, and my customer here is all professionals or high-end, musicians. They know what they are doing. So I kind of every day I get nervous handling those instruments, but more and more, and you do it. I thought it's gonna be easier, but it's getting difficult every day. So okay, so enough introduction. So I'm gonna share my PowerPoint with you. Can I
Okay, you should be able
share
to
my screen? Okay.
Yes, you should be able to.
Great. PowerPoint here. All right, can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be talking about mostly the woodwind repair, but brass people can also, I hope they can appreciate the information I have here. So here's the New York City, 5th Avenue and 54th Street. And this is before the pandemic, and tons of people. We have third floor is a piano salon, and this is where Wayne and I is. 11th floor showroom, and artists can come in, select the instruments. And here's a shop area, and just the two technicians, Wayne Tanabe and myself. And every day we have people coming in here and doing some modifications, tweaking, and select instruments. Pretty busy activity. And wait a minute. How did he get in here? So my last business trip is Renton. So I took this picture on the wall. I loved it. Anyway, so this is my bench. Bench on the left is my engraving bench. This is a flute head joint. I do engraving quite a bit, and I invested myself during this pandemic. I found that I can do it. And the right side is here, right here, Yamaha, this bench. And this clarinet is quite a famous clarinet. Bob Marsalis' A clarinet, the famous Mozart clarinet. So here I have like 190 slides, so I have to be really quick. So this will cover almost everything that woodwind repair technician requirement. Let's see. The first things first, the wood cracks, and what the technician can do. When I work on the wood, I often see the nail giving wood the stress, and it makes the wood to crack. The same thing happening on the clarinet register tube, oboes, key posts. I see that too often. So I started making the key post a little bit, just to rawhide hammer, just a little tap, and it's getting a lot of professional player choosing Yamaha, selecting Yamaha. I just make sure this key post is not too tight. It has to be tight, but not too tight. Especially these key guard screw, is sometimes the crack happens from here. The same thing. There's a lot of stress this key post. Just so you know. And here, how can I get rid of this? Okay, I got it. When you're working with wood, you always have to deal with these small grains. Can you see this picture?
Yes.
Yeah. Buffet has a green line, and we have a oboe duet plus, and those are no problem, but the wood has tiny grain going on. So, and also some water issue. If you clean the tone hole, some nasty stuff coming out. So if you want to doing a repair work, make sure tone holes are clean. And I will show you how I seal these tone holes, the leaky tone holes, the pinholes. And a little heat with the pat slick and push against the tone hole, and then you get this. Now, you know, where the pat slick attached, it start to shine like this. So you can clearly see where the leak is. This two spot is a big one. And these little thing is gonna add up, and you have, you know, the leaky instruments. So these are the crazy glue I use, but before adding crazy glue, maybe you can put this little accelerator with Q-tips. It just wipe the tone hole so the crazy glue doesn't go anywhere. And I used to do this, you know, the crazy glue has to be very thin, the water thin crazy glue. To hold that is very difficult. So I used to use this needle's eye, but now I highly recommend this Stumac Teflon toothpick, and it could hold the crazy glue very well. And after the presentation, I can show you with the close-up camera, and even has a tiny hole here, series of hole, so you can apply the crazy glue with control. And it's not too expensive. You should get one. And I know the guitar people, they use this company quite often, I think. And repeat that, little heat, and make sure you don't burn your finger, and you get this. And you can finish that. And these tools are available. This is the VOM tools. They're very expensive, and it usually doesn't match the angle, so I don't use it. And every time I have to do the clean job, you have to make your own. It's not that difficult. This is a notorious Selmer signature clarinet. Famous clarinet player brings in here. Sharpie is your friend. So this is the 1/2-inch diameter, just a brass rod with the lathe. You can cut the angle. If you don't know the angle, just put the Sharpie like this. Can you see it? This is the Sharpie, the black mark, and then the rub against the tone hole. And if you nail the angle, you get this. So Sharpie disappears. So you know that your angle is right. So this is how you do a clean job of finishing it. And I had to do the wooden flute, another notorious flute that almost 99% like a D tone hole. They do crack, guarantee it. So this is the tool I made. Just you can do this like a few minutes with a lathe work, and it's not just a one angle. There's a curve to it. So I made the outside. You see the Sharpie here disappearing just the outside the edge. So make sure that, after crazy glue and the crack work, no, not the crack work, yeah, filled with the crazy glue, you can clean it. The outside is clean. Now this is for the inside. The tone hole is like a brand new, looks very new. So now you know how to fix a tone hole. And here's a story from my friend, very famous clarinet artist in Japan, and worked with famous technician, very famous. And he created a waterproof pads. So the pads, you can use it 100 years, not exaggerating. The pad doesn't take any waters. So he did that with this tone hole work. What happened was disaster. This artist having water everywhere. You know why? Because the artist having like a spongy leather pads, they're taking care of the waters. Pads actually absorbing the moisture from inside. So this artist didn't have any water issue, but as soon as he fixed the tone hole, they changed to very expensive waterproof pad, having tons of issues water, like even 10 seconds after you blow the horn, you get the water. Oh, sorry. I should silence it. So you know what I'm talking about? So this is very important that it's your reputation. It's your reputation. If you touch water is gonna come up. So be careful, be careful with what you do. Be careful about the like a cork pads. It's okay because they can take a little water, but the synthetic pads, sometimes water bubbles up and then the artist having issues after playing 30 minutes. That's the worst. And, okay, next. Successful crack work, pin work. I'm not gonna here tell you how to pin it, but prepare for a pin afterward. How do you finish it? It's matter, and people don't see the pin inside a woodwind instrument. So I use this to make a very fine grenadier wood, and when I making the barrels, when I shaving the rosewood on the lathe, I collect the dust and keep it in a different bag, so that I have like a 3 color of wood always in my drawers. So get ready for the finishing work, right? So sometimes this is the pin when inside, but sometimes you can emulate the grain like this. So that it could disappear. It could completely disappear from a surface. And then again, your customer is going to doubt that, did you really pin it? So it's a problem. If you do too clean, clean job always good. All right, so let's move on to key fitting, spring, key height, timing, bumper material. Very important part of woodwind work. And we do have these tools. Probably you know by now how these works for you. And this is our bass clarinet. This is the tool that makes the key post, shaving the key post so the pivot screw goes in more. So that takes care of the play. But if you keep doing this, ended up you're having trouble. So I have this, I bought it $60 from eBay, jeweler's lathe, and the motor was $199. It's a nice motor, the Shareline motor, and the Colette sets. I use this machine every day, and it's very useful for working on the small instruments, oboe, flute, clarinet, little saxophone. This is the actually bassoon pivot screw. And lots of bassoon doesn't have what is called on the key post. It doesn't have
Countersink?
socket. Yes, countersink. So it has to do it this way. But I was thinking, why not for other instruments? So this is the before and then after. It's very easier to replace pivot screw than the key post. Agreed?
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is clarinet's D, A key here. And, you know, of course you can do it by your hand with tools, but this is more accurate. And professional players can feel this. This is a critical part of a one-on-one adjustments, and you know, top joint key and lower joint key has to work together. And if there's a play here, and no, you cannot have any play. Has to move smoothly. And so this is a, you know, perfect straight. So lathe is very useful. And I know that like a brass technician use lathe to like a solder the like a mouthpiece receiver and a mouse pipe, you know, perfectly aligned straight. Some technician use that as a jig, but you know. And sometimes for, especially for handmade flute, I do this. And even a little tiny dust affect the expensive handmade flute. Like a Muramatsu flute, you know, you cannot work on a Muramatsu dusty place. And this is, sometimes you find a red rouge. And this is maybe the only way sometimes you can tell this Selmer Mark VI is re-lacquered or original lacquered. Yeah. Yeah, some red rouge there. So swedging tool, I like this one, Ferries, I think. And right here is the like a washer bearing. Yeah, before this bearing, I have to put this one on the vise, and it was good. But this one I can do with my, don't have to use a vise. I can do it easily. And sometimes where all the instrument, its keys are so wobbly, even replacing a rod doesn't work. You know, the keys are still very wobbly inside the pipe here. So this is the, you can do this, but don't do this too much. I have learned her the way. So just to pinch it to make the key very stable, and useful for, this is for clarinet, E flat, A flat key. And this was the G sharp key on the clarinet. I use that to old bassoons and all that. Yeah, woodwind. So make sure this blade is not too steep, right? And this is the opposite of a play. If the keys are binding, and we have a showroom here in the winter time, keys start binding on the woodwinds. So I use this technique to, this is make no damage for the instrument. It's just pivot to make it stay. And sometimes old saxophone, there's lots of play. The switching doesn't work, or where the switching cannot be done, like a C-sharp key on a saxophone. So here's a brass washer with, this is the kababu or yakitori skewer shaft. You can put it in and you can solder it. And this washer is perfect. Yamaha actually sells this washer if you don't have access to lathe. And this washer is for the C-sharp key, or this is the G-sharp key on the saxophone. Well, number 121. That's the part number right here. All right. So move on to the spring adjustment. And this is my old spring adjustment. It's just a rectangular brass bar with just a tiny hole. But as you can see, you don't have to touch the spring. And this is a brass, and it slips very well. And you can add some key oil there, but you can adjust the spring. And it's difficult to reach place like saxophones, low B, B flat. You have total control. This is great. And I got this from Sebastian Selmer's technician. Very useful. Now I have a different style, but like a hammerhead shark. I'll show you later. But this is one idea. You can make it. So the idea is you're not touching spring, your bare hand, and a total control, bending without touching, without, yeah, you get the idea. So here, every spring, very sensitive area, I do this technique. And I copied this from Tim Clark, very famous woodwind technician. And I saw his work, and those springs, his work, he does this. And I was like, why is this? And I did it. And sure enough, it was amazing, amazing differences. So it's a big credit for him. And a lot of my customers happy with sometimes how I do spring work. And here's the next thing. It's also a big effect on both play sounds wise, or also touch under the finger. This is the A flat spring. And if you work on the old instruments, their spring is very thin and hard. And unfortunately, we cannot get those great springs anymore. And Yamaha is okay, maybe best of the industry, but still, when I do, just a bam, 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 bam on this bench block and with a hammer, and this makes it thin and hard. And results, you have to do it yourself to understand. This is amazing differences, and the sounds get better too. And spring adjustment number 2. All right, what's the difference in these two pictures? And the left side and the right side is the spring. This flat spring is bended from here, right after the screw. And the left one is almost like a 1/4 of the spring is touching keys. And almost, I'll tell you, 90% of artists likes left side. It moves, feel quicker, moves quicker, and the spring is very sharp, quick. And sometimes I double, but that's not the point. Yamaha saxophone palm keys right here. Can you see like a gummy cork with Teflon? So this is a support. And I think Yamaha designer overstudied. I think this is okay, but the support, having a little support makes the flat spring really moves quickly. And I know that one company use this type of springs, so I have to, sacrifice my precious pen. I use the pen spring. Okay, move on. So here's the flute, handmade flute. This is for the design we have here, Yamaha handmade flute. When the spring gets shorter, you have more difficulty having control over. The longer the spring, you have more control, right? And here's one other way you can control is to make the spring cradle a little closer to the hinge rod. This is very effective. And the same thing, this is for Matthew DeFore. He was Chicago Symphony, and now he's Berlin. This is his old flute, and this was Yamaha actually. So, he's really meticulous. He's incredibly, he can notice any differences, and only like a half millimeter differences. It's huge differences. And this is the right hand pinky, right? And I will tell you from experience that when human having this pinch, that like your forefinger and the thumb, indicator finger and thumb, this pinchy action, it's better that if spring tension is equal. Some student flute has really stiff spring on the thumb, but the very light touch of the C spring here. So, and you cannot control over. So it's better balance if you have this pinching action. The left hand is very important. So the same thing, the saxophone octave key, and then the left hand key, spring tension, it's maybe better if it's close, matching tension. And these are spring coming from a factory. This is Yamaha oboe. And unfortunately, factory cannot control everything. It's not perfect. Yamaha is close to perfect, but for me, the oboe spring doesn't make sense. The long spring, short spring, long spring. So that's where I think about, what's the most effective spring tension and where the cradle has to go. So sometimes I do that, and then artists can notice these differences. So pay attention to how you feel under your finger. I was a trumpet player, and I wasn't that sensitive, but luckily my clients are monsters, and they could tell. Yep, and the key height is another important part of woodwind repair. You can do, if everything else is perfect, but the key height is too small, your customer is going to say, yeah, this instrument is stiff, you're not good. So very important, and very important to do clean job. I use Scotch tape all the time. You see, you put the Scotch tape on the body, and then before that, this is the technique from Jeff Smith. I love this. I put the packing tape behind the sandpaper. Anyway, so you start shaving it. After that, you flip the Scotch tape, do the cleaning job from a cork. This is very useful. And same thing on the flute and any woodwinds. And here is very often ignored with woodwind technique. And those two key is landing at the same time. you feel a lot better than landing different timing. So make sure, not only moves very well, you adjusted the spring, but at the end, if those two key, this combination, F sharp or, the C doesn't land together, artist is gonna notice it. So watch how they play, watch their fingers, how they hold the clarinet, how they hold the saxophone, then you can execute. And that's where you make a difference between good technician to, I'm a lucky man that people can tell me, so you have to be very open mind. And once you experience Tomoji, you cannot go any other technicians. That's where the magic happens. So if you have these more, your customer follows you. You can make following. That's where you make differences, right?
Hey, Tomo, there's a question. Any particular reason for using Scotch tape versus blue painter's tape?
Yeah, any tape. Yeah, the blue tape is fine. Yeah,
Okay.
but Scotch tape is thinner, so you can see the
okay.
opening. Yeah. Yep. Good question. Good question. Yeah, anything that protects is great. Once you make a scratch, you can't. It's difficult to clean up. And the key height is part of it. And yeah, and the bumper material. Sometimes the buffet started using a rubber bumper, rubber baby buggy bumper. So this is Texas. Mark Nuccia switched to gummy cork. Oh, he was happy. So just the bumper. I didn't touch anything. Just change the bumper. And the bumper, sometimes key oil got on the surface, and sometimes you feel, the smooth surface sticks together, making like a kissing noises. And so I think natural, again, taking care of moistures, oils, and natural stuff is maybe works well with instruments. Just a bumper made him feel much comfortable. So here's an interesting thing. There's so many Star Wars fans in this room. So measuring is part of a very interesting part. I hate fixing wooden instruments. I hate it, absolutely hate. What I interested in is, how the system works, how this instrument plays better than this instrument, and why this artist picked this instrument against other instruments. So you start measuring. I strongly recommend start measuring everywhere. So then one day you'll be like Leia, Princess Leia, aren't you a little short to be a stormtrooper? So you can say that to the artist. So here's some of my favorite tools. Mitsutoyo is the Ichiban, but I'm cheating with this one. And quickly, you can check the bore. It's very good. I think this was on eBay, $130. It's totally worth it. It's so quick. It's not so accurate, and it's not even a name brand. If you want to get the name brand, you can pay like $1,000, but this is 130, and micrometer, and this probably the cheapest option. And you must have this. I like the half bowl, this one. And this telescoping also really good. There's a spring inside, and then you release the handle at the end. So this two thing goes outside, and you can then measure the distance. And once you're doing this a lot, and when you're making the new tone holes and the stuff, you could guess, if you drill with 7.5 millimeter drill bit, you can measure, actual measurement is like a 7.45 or a little smaller. So that's, or sometimes even bigger if your drill press is not so accurate. So you can get familiar with your tools, and then you can have much better accurate selection of what kind of tool bit you're going to use. For artists is asking this measurement, how can I achieve that? So start measuring. Having these tools, you have to. So here is the question. So if you start playing with lathe, you must have a little math skills. So anyone can tell the degree of here, how much angle. So this is the perfect triangle, right? Right triangle here, 90 degrees. So this is the barrel. But I'm not a mathematically Asian. Don't worry. Don't worry. There's an app for it. It's a free app, and this is the 199. So you can see the tangent theta very well. Again, so if it doesn't work, you have a Sharpie, you can guess, and then trial and error. Yeah. So my philosophy with the machine is like a cut twice, measure once. Cut many times, measure at the end, hoping that it's a correct measurement. That's what I am. So okay, interesting part of this clinic. Let's talk about the flow. So we know there's a woodwind, there's a bore inside. Trumpet has a moss pipe that goes up, and the trombone has moss pipe right after the mouthpiece. That's where the taper happening. What's happening inside the taper is, this is the conversion flow. That's a very famous Manic barrel design. So clarinet barrel, for brass people, explain it to you that starting bigger, and then where the barrel goes to the top joint, the diameter gets smaller. So what we're looking at is a velocity increase and a pressure drop. So we are using this thing to create the airflow, right? So this is the opposite, divergent flow. So who took, advantage of this phenomenon is Nikola Tesla. So he created a Tesla valve. Tesla valve is the valve that it doesn't have any middle part, the valve, but controlling the flow. Very famous Tesla valve. So there's a video, and this guy is you still have time? Yeah.
I can't hear anything.
Flow restricting system.
Can you hear?
If you input
No.
gas from one side of
No,
the valve,
okay.
it has a
So
very
let's skip that.
high-speed camera set.
So can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay, so this is the YouTube video. This guy's testing Tesla valve with the gas, and igniting a gas. It's pretty funny, and you can search that. You can find it easily. So what I'm trying to tell you is woodwind has tons of tone holes, and it's acting each other. Sometimes acting negative, sometimes acting positive, and that's controlling the intonation. So to prove that, we have to visit how the let's say clarinet are made. So let's say, yeah, I'll do really quickly here. So the clarinets are made. First clarinet didn't have any octave, register, or just a fundamental instruments. On the YouTube, the guy, take the drill bit and drill and make a carrot or cabbage, vegetable instruments, something like that. And his son, Jacob Denner, moved the thumb B hole closer to the mouthpiece and reduced the size of the tone hole and produced the pitch of B flat. And assume he was having a lot of water, and he put the metal tube. So that's where the first clarinet was born in the 1710. So adding more key created a complete scale. Yeah, you don't have to follow me on this, but there's a register tube was created in 1710. So a lot of clarinet player having problem on the throat B flat note. This mushy, stuffy sound is started since 1710. So you could tell that to your customer. Don't worry, it's a known issue since 1710. And a lot of stuff happened. And so the classic clarinet we called is a 5-key clarinet. Only 5 key, that was enough, and enough to attract a lot of composers. And so 5 key is the 4-finger A and thumb B flat and low E and B, of course, and then F sharp, G sharp, and A flat, E flat. That's the only key needed. And bore was smaller, and the intonation was somehow very good. And adding a lot of key created a lot of issues. So sometimes less is more, but we are getting a lot of better with intonations. And so many designer trial and error. If you go to a music museum, South Dakota, that was a beautiful museum. You should go there. I think they're open.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. All right. So great collection of old clarinet, and very interesting clarinet that holds a different way, or you can control both hands. So then the bomb system came in. So that's the history of the clarinet. So remember, what you have to remember is 1710. So very useful. Very difficult clarinet customer came in. Tomoji, my B flat is stuffy. Yeah, I know. It's from problem from 1710. And okay, 2015, of course, cantina system for Tatooine band. And there's a YouTube for it.
Oh my
Sorry.
gosh.
So this is before the pandemic. Me and the Selmer technician is fighting, and definitely Selmer is the dark side. Okay, so the clarinet bore. I know this is boring, but okay, I'll continue. There's 2 types of clarinet bores. One is CS, one is SE. We have and in the world, and in the buffet world, CS is very similar to R13-ish, and SE is you guessed it, it's RC type bore, right? And this is a common question. Hey, which one is the small bore? My answer is neither. It's because look at this. The CS starts smaller. People think it's a small bore instruments, but in the middle, look at this. It's bigger than a SE bore. So it's all about the, conversion and divergent taper differences, proportions. So, all right, it's the same thing. Here, if you have SE style or RC style clarinet bore, your tone hole will likely the same proportion wise. And if you have a CS R13 bore, your tone hole is corresponding. Can you see that? And this is how you can tell by looking at the right hand chimney tone holes, because SE has more undercut, more uppercut, more like a hourglass. Very thin wall here. The chimney is thin. And CS clarinet R13, little thicker wall. All right. So how the bore we design is, this is confusing part starting. I'm confused as well. If you have convergent conical bore, your high notes are sharper and low notes are flatter. If you have a divergent, it's opposite. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because clarinet jumps 12s and a saxophone jumps octave, right? So this is more like a saxophone and flugelhorn design bore. So that it kind of makes sense. And this is the clarinet bore on the red here. All the mixing. It didn't have to mix if we don't have a lower key or higher keys, but so those making taper is this middle section very unstable. Every clarinet has an unstable. That's why we have a chimney to create the volume in the middle section to making the, the adding volume makes the, adding volume to it. So clarinet boards getting straighter, I say. So here's one of the example of how, what kind of, this is a Bassett F. I say F stands for something else here. It's really F. So anyway, so this is how I see the woodwind instruments. When you change the oboe reed, or change the oboe reed well, or anything that upper section, you change the artist, of course, change the mouthpiece, it affects entire instrument. Yes, yes. And if you touch a little bit here, it still affects this a lot. But here's the interesting part. When you touch here, it's kind of affecting here. It's very interesting. And also, if you touch one tone hole and affecting immediately after or immediate up or low, So let's say you have a manic barrel on your clarinet. So they call the tuning barrel because the or icon barrel or Yamaha maybe creates another barrel for you, is smaller. Intonation gets better because the barrel that comes with the instrument is usually bigger volume. And so the smaller means creating here, divergent bore. So usually clarinet high notes, high B and C is very sharp, but having smaller volume on up here makes the upper register flatter, right? And then usually clarinet low F is very flat, low E is flat, but smaller section right here makes the lower register sharper. So that's how the tuning barrel works. So here's another example of a convergent divergent. This is a rocket nozzle. So when, when the combustion chamber after that, so the nozzle, it's controlling the speed, trying to have a maximum speed. So that's what the clarinet is. So the clarinet is rocket science everywhere. Congratulations, clarinet players. Yay. So let's take a look at the tone holes, variety of tone holes here. Now we know every tone hole has undercut, except the student flute and some very expensive company makes great clarinet, they say, but sometimes they don't do this the undercutting. This is how we do it. And there's a cutter here and attached to some stick and gets into the clarinet bore inside and then pick up the tool from the outside. That's how it works. And uppercut. I think I made it like a long time ago. You can make it your own tools. And these angle from top also control the sound intonation. Usually if you do undercut, you can raise the fundamental notes, little sharper than 12ths above. So here's the our cut model. You can ignore this, but you can see undercut and uppercut. We have 6 or 7 undercutters, and each upper cutter, I can show you after this, but we have almost 23, 24 upper cutters. So we try to control the intonation. Here's some close up. And we do some raised tone holes. This is raised too. Sometimes it's just it feels good under your finger. Sometimes intonation. And yeah, I recommend to purchase this for you. You should have this one, like a 82 degree industrial standard cutter. Sometimes a step tone hole. You often see this on the piccolo tone holes. And again, a chimney areas. I was trying to fooling around with this, and B is sharp and F sharp is flat. So sometimes tone holes are angled and raised. Yeah, this is Michael Wayne's A clarinet Boston Symphony. I created an angry man here. I replaced the synthetic cork to natural cork, and he likes it. And here, and sometimes this is the tone hole wall. I think I buffed it, this one, and sometimes you can machine it. That gives you a little more clear sound. And insert. This is not a good job, whoever did this, but the inserts are very useful. And this is the bassoon insert I made. This angle is like a 69 degrees. Very interesting thing. And Koya can do a better job. And into the tone hole, into the bore. And some German clarinet has tone hole, like a C-sharp tone hole, goes into the bore. I think Yamaha CSG3 has that. And it takes care of a water issue, of course, and something else. And very famous clarinet tuner, Hans Manick. Here's a thumb tube. It's blurry, but the thumb tube, he twists the thumb tube a little left, counterclockwise. And everybody said that's the way. I don't know. I can't tell, but I do it. So there's so many ways to filling the tone hole to attack the intonations. So it's interesting thing that you know, the few slides back I told the divergent convergent bore. So if you start filling these tone holes, right? So the notes after gets a little sharper. It's very interesting. So you have to do it to understand. And the tape is the fastest way to understand that effect. You can do it a lot of tape, or maybe even you can plug the hole. What happens to the other notes? So just one tape doesn't feel anything. Just to do a lot to feel the effect. You can practice yourself doing that. And here's an oboe. No, yeah, it's an oboe E flat. So electric tape was my friend, and I, start experimenting this, but I'm no longer using this. I found this a little, it shrinks a little bit, and coming off after 1 year. But it was very. I thought I found great stuff, but I'm still trying to try different materials. So this is the fiber fix and use UV lights to make this liquid very, very hard. I was using epoxy because epoxy sounds a lot better than taping it. You can lower the same amount of intonation, but tape is lousy and noisy, and epoxy is clear, more clear sound. So, so I use tape to determine how much amount need, and then I was doing this. And if it's too much, you can start shaving. So this actually cures like 10 seconds. It's done. So I was so happy. And here's another material I want to show you. This is the white stuff right here. This is also from Stuart McDonald. And the result is this. It's amazing. You can just put it in the bore, and don't worry about the glues. It's a pretty clean job. I was watching their website, looking at this. Wait a minute. So you can crazy glue over Teflon, of course. So I bought it and using it for clarinet work or oboe work. It's great. Oh, here's a Teflon toothpick, very useful. And this is interesting that almost 99% clarinet tone hole is kind of straight down to the bore, except the C sharp, G sharp, and the undercut is also symmetric. I mean, trying to do even, but human is uneven. if you look at your face with a mirror, half mirror, and then, we're all not perfect, and instrument has to be not perfect. So this is, I'm feeling under part of a undercut. So that sometimes saves my day. That here's a Cleveland Symphony Effendi Yusuf. He's amazing player. His technician do the great job, filling tone holes, but he has problem. His clarion C and B got so sharp. He came in to help, so I removed everything. So now his clarion was great, but this tone hole was the problem. So he wants to try this, so that feel the lower part. I did it, and B was -8. F sharp was not so much. So be aware where you tape or where you the intonation work going to. So this was also a problem to fix the the second register, but the fundamental got too low. So this was the fix. This is the cork attached to the pad. It's crazy, but sometimes they fix the timbre and this one too. And this was too big, always don't believe me. Oh no, believe me, do it very, exaggerating way. That's the only way you can feel the effect. So, and this was really good. So I made it a little smaller. And San Francisco Symphony plays Yamaha. Oh, yeah, this is the twist I was talking about. Hans-Manic technique. I guess I'm just telling customer, this is the Hans-Manic trick. I'm doing the same thing. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Tomo, how's it going?
Doing good.
Yeah, that's an
And,
interesting twist.
and yeah, the relocation I do often. The location, if you have a same register tube, move 1 millimeter up, your high B and high C is 5 cents better, things like that. And I have no idea about this, but some some very famous artists still use this, and artissimo area, some effects. And yeah, I was trying to find out if I can do flute engraving. So I started out with hammer and chisel engraving. So I'm getting old. My eyesight is not good. So I bought this, what is it called? Optivisor or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I look at the YouTube, one guy is doing this. So I earned a little more distance between workpiece of my eyes. I was hitting my eyes with my hammers. But this saved me. So we are here, both LA and the New York Atelier. We sometimes build keys, and I often think about, the connexy like this, using a little smaller drill and to make a reamer to just fit this key snugly, so you don't have to use jigs. That's the idea. So no jigs. I hate jigs, and so if you need a 90-degree angle keys, oh, jig, we don't use jigs where we go. Here is an example of keys, and sometimes use lanolin to pick up the pieces, tiny pieces. That makes me faster. And to do the clean job, this is the 10 millimeter punch. And I like the Q felts and 0.5 millimeter Q felts, sometimes 0.8 millimeter, but half millimeter works very good and quiet Q felts. And punch the 10 millimeter and the 2 millimeter and cut here so it can get in. Right after that, you just do a V cut. Very clean. Works on Buffet and Yamaha. And this is, I did the clinic from like a 2008. It's a tire tread gauge. And
Yeah.
here's a cork here. And there's a little thing sticks out just a little bit. It's a perfect amount that this gauge works very well. And I use this only, when you have a difficult flute customer. Sometimes flute customer gives you a headache.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
That's the finished one.
Yeah. Because, they ask me, hey, Tomoji, can you change the head joint cork? Of course. And, do check the leaks. And I took care of the leaks. Of course, you're going to feel totally different. You're playing different instrument, different, adjusted instrument. Tomoji messed up with the cork. So that's when hey, look at I take pictures and this is exactly the place. And you're going to feel different anyways, because everything is different. And here, sometimes I really want to do a good job on the saxophone padding. And I do this like a sushi chef picking up a rice. Make sure cardboard is soft. And so that right after what is called a cold fitting, make sure this resonator is pushed in. You don't have to do anything after the heat or after put the shellac on. I thought about this watching this. Look at this. This is the shellac I use, or the brown one I use. This is like after 3 months on J.L. Smith's coffee cup in a room temperature. This got me think of, hey, maybe saxophone clamp is a good idea. And if you leave the saxophone not played, I think shellac inside a cup, I thought it's gonna stay, but look at this. It's not, it's Photoshop. The flute is straight. So I started doing this, and it's really good results. And when I have time, I put in the middle, I put on the cup a little bit, make sure you have a support outside. In a factory, you don't want to see the shellac coming out from the side of the pad. So in the factory, unfortunately, they just do it in the middle. But for my customer, I have a great success, and pads are stable. And here's my golden rule, adjusting saxophone. And let's say I'm checking this F sharp. I'm controlling with my thumb or popsicle stick, because F sharp is controlled by F, E, D key on the right hand, the pushing this lever up, right? So that's how the F sharp moves. And with G sharp key attached to it, G sharp key. And if I have time, maybe I should attach the B flat key as well. But the same spring tension, make sure that you adjust the pad with everything else you think about. And I'm kind of against using, because I learned this way, but on my rap, I do the padding work on not on the saxophone holding jig, because you're not working for Lester Young. So this is my golden rule. I hope you agree with this. And, there's a crazy, oh, I can't say that. There's a very interesting, unique tuba player in the Metropolitan Opera. And before Wayne joined the Yamaha, I have to put the mass pipe on his tuba. And he calls me from the Lowe's, hey, Tomoji, what kind of solder I should get? No, come over here, I can do it. And I was doing it on my soldering bench, tubas lying down, and I start putting it. And he goes, no, 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 no. I will hold the tuba upright, how he played the angle, the exact angle. Then you put the mass pipe soldered on, because the bigger the instrument gets, and the bell could be, it's their own weight to it. It's kind of twists. And if you solder that way, if you put it up, and then there's a stress, and sure enough. And if you're doing lower pads here and here, and I think I learned from Wayne, and I don't remember, but and sometimes this key guard has tension,
Oh, yeah.
and yeah, if you put the pads without the key guard, that has problem, and you ended up have to readjust your pads, because the key guard sometimes gives you a twist. You know what I'm talking about? And this is, I don't know why this slide. Oh, you see this watermark? This sometimes gives you idea that this flute may have a leak here or here,
Hmm.
And when you remove the pad, don't just remove the pad. You examine very carefully. When you want to clean the flute, clean the instrument, don't just clean it. Just look at it first and see anything. Just this is a sign that you ended up having troubles. So you can kind of see the issues. Of course, the new pad, if you do the good job, you don't have this problem. But sometimes, you get the idea. Here's a totally different object, a tenon repair. This is same idea, the tenon with Teflon. I can do really clean job doing this. This is, I think, Delrin plastic and a little chip on the tenon. I fixed that with grenadier powder.
So,
Clean job.
Tomoji, what are you doing? What's the lip sticking out there? What's going on
Oh,
here?
this is a little oversized plastic disc.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to fix the little chip.
Oh, you're
the
just using that, yeah, to support it. So when
Yeah.
you fill it in, it's filling in against something, but
Yeah.
it won't stick to the
And
plastic.
the edge is perfect flat. You don't have to do anything. It's just maybe on the lace. It's just one cut.
Do you do anything to keep the plastic from sticking to it, or does it come off clean?
It's that the regular cork grease does.
Oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
Or maybe lanolin or anything that,
Yeah.
you know.
Or greasy fingers.
Yep. I just do this and and flute work. I use this to make my job faster. Perfect fit. Who said you have to have a handle? It's just this. It works great. And here's one idea to hold the pads. It's just the idea. And woodwind technicians, you must have this. If you don't have this, make this tomorrow. And sometimes air goes in from here, air goes out from inside. Always check the section. And open hole flute is the worst one. And sometimes these felts got in between the washer and the chimney, and you have a leak. And it makes the world of differences if you have a good section. And here's a very, very crazy
Wow.
work I had to do. This is the king post. This is the attached to the G sharp key, and then C sharp trill, and everything. So this key post has a lot of stress, and sometimes you have to do solder back on this, but I really don't solder back on like this. Actually, I apply more heat to make this rib open a little more, right where in the middle. That's when you can really get this metal to, you can fix the metal to when you solder back on, this metal doesn't have stress. You know, luckily this rib is long enough that still you can not completely, don't remove it. It's really difficult to put it back on with accuracy. So just to remove it, just a half of it, and then remove the solder, and then fix the vent. So metal has a spring, but this, if you do the push it's push it back. So this is how I do it. And then for doing that, after that, I do this with with the hammer, make the solder very thin, and it can go in between. I think this could, I was doing this like in Japan, I was doing the band instruments repair, lots of brass instruments like a French horn, brace, or where you don't want to make a jig every time, it's or hard to reach area, but there's a space for solder, it. It's just make the flat solder and clean first, of course, and a little heat will take care of oil, and put the, yeah, so it's automatic. It's automatic. And it's difficult. There's a tone hole sometimes soldered onto it. So you don't want to overheat, right? So
Right.
this way, so the heat apply very, very efficiently, and this rib can connect to the body very well with minimum cleaning job. So makes your job faster, cleaner, quicker. So this is the great stuff. If you don't have this, buy it. It's from Rio Grande. This is a titanium soldering strips. And this is just a strip like that. Okay, and you can bend it your finger. And I use this one to attach the rib back on to that gold flute. And this is the Teflon tube. Teflon is very strong for the heat. It's very good. And sometimes I just use a Teflon tube to put the head joint lip plate back on to the head joint. Just like you're checking your blood pressure, your nurse, you will do that. I don't know why they do that, to reveal the blood vessel. Do this, So sometimes you tie the flute, the piece with just this cord of little close up. So what's good about this titanium is you can heat, doesn't change the shape at all. And still, I did a silver solder. I do a lot of silver soldering, and still has spring, and doesn't change the shape. That's great. And any other soldering clamp I used, when you heat, and regular solder is fine, but silver solder is high temperature, and when they lost the springs, and then while you're heating a piece, and then the spring goes moves, that's really disaster. And sometimes I use this is I don't use this dirty piece, but this is just an example. I just took a picture of it. I use this soldering jig, you know, the 3-jaw jig with tweezer. You can control, great control on the tweezers. And then after that, let it go with this soldering jig. This works great. And sometimes you have to solder different piece right next to the piece you just attached to it. For example, spring cradle, you're building the keys. So that's when this low temperature solder, silver solder came in very useful. And this is the clay. You can shape any shape you want. You can push the piece on. It could make a good jig. And this is the like a ceramic base. It's all from Rio Grande.
So what that clay, what's the?
Yeah, this is the molding clay.
And you're just using that to support the pieces in odd
Yeah,
shape?
sometimes, yeah, uneven pieces.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. Yeah, this is usually goes into the housing and then you hammer to make it very like a concrete hard. And then, the molding.
Wow.
Yeah. It's very strong for heat, against heat. Okay, different topic. Perfect tenon cork works every time. It really does. Use your caliper, do this. Huh? Okay. So I use 2 laser blade. Here's a laser blade 1, laser blade 2, and here comes 6-inch ruler, and push against these 2 blades, and then make a cut. You have a perfect tenon cork every time. Of course, you can control your angle, but this is great. And here's another clarinet woodwind tips from me that every time I see the instrument, it has a key guard. I start with key guard. I work with key guard first. A lot of technicians ignore this key guard, or just put felts in there so it doesn't make noise. Key guard is a key guard, very useful. If you have a very good key guard, your adjustment will be very, very secure, stable, and you don't have to do extra pressure to make the pad seal. So I make sure your key guards are great. Sometimes I make key guards. Here's a soprano 62. It's very easy to make. And with this Yamaha 62 soprano, the C# opening system is functional. Without this, it's not. The same thing on the saxophone key guard. I worked at it first. And some people hate using this Teflon, but I love it. Let's say you are working on the G key or the baritone sax high F# lever, which is so long. I will intentionally, I bend these long keys. So the keys are always against this key guard. So some technician said, oh, Teflon makes noise, but no, it's not. If the key is always against this key guard, it stay there, it's not gonna move anywhere. So you have a better job. So, all right, at the end of my presentation, this is my show. I have to show off my work. Sorry. So a lot of modifications happening here in Yamaha Artist Services, New York and LA, and all experimenting happening here. And some ideas sometimes became production. And here's a very first stage of a Yamaha venting system. It's more of a complicated system. It's all works with artists, and we don't make judges, and we always have a great artist help with us. And here's another example of we make every instruments, and here's an idea from French bassoon tone holes, and this is the low E venting hole, actually keeping noise from this tone hole.
That's
So
why
here's
it's
a final.
folded in an E shape, right?
Right.
Let's see. Oh,
Yeah,
now
this
it's
is
a
the
W.
no, it's M.
It's the
W.
EMW.
Right. So here's a basset, B flat basset clarinet I made for David Schifrin, and actually works. Only 2 songs in the world could use this instrument, but it was worth doing it. And Yamaha's bass clarinet and C sharp is minus 30 cents, I have to admit. And but this fixed everything, intonations. And sometimes it's just a simple screw like this, and it just helps artists. This is LA Phil bassoonist and Whitney Crockett. This is the extension I did. This is the most challenging clarinet modification I ever done. Before it's a Mazzeo system. I copied it 1950s Selmer. It was so difficult. It was so like a five springs working together. One is very soft. Next one's a little bit stronger, and the next one's a little more stronger, and the next one's a little more stronger. So that's so this is my engraving show off. So my hammer and chisel, I got really into it, and I invest myself to get this air compressor in my kitchen in New York City, and my family is not happy, but I got a Hitachi very quiet air compressor. So this is a Brandon 14K gold head joint I did for Pittsburgh Symphony. So, engraving was my hobby since I started studying repair at the Yamaha Technical Academy. I was going over to a saxophone engraver in Saitama factory, and I was really fascinated. So I decided to do it, and then now I'm here. I'm getting a little bit better. So this is my practice joint, and this is another jet set plastic here.
Yeah.
Very good. Thermalock. I think this is harder than jet set. I don't know, but lots of jewelry industry is very famous, and it could melt with a hair dryer. So this is Steve Wilson's alto sax. My hummingbird.
Yeah.
My gods. Kwanzaa icons.
Tomoji, did you weigh that one after you engraved it? I know you did. Vincent Herring weighed it.
Of course.
How much
course.
did it lose?
It's 8 grams.
8 grams of brass sitting on the floor.
Yep.
One little cut at a time.
Yeah, this is the Vincent's And this is a credit for Craig Anderson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I met him at the WIT, and he was presenting. He saw this and wait a minute, Tomoji, I have a pearl from King Super 20s, and he sent me a whole bag of pearls, mother of pearls. So I was able to do this. So this is actual pearl from King Super 20, which is so cool. So I do this my spare time. So that's it. Thank you very much. That was my presentation.
All
Hope you
right.
enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it. I stopped sharing. How can I do that? Okay, stop sharing.
There you go.
I enjoyed it.
All right. Any questions? Not only me. I think roundtable is coming, right? So
Hey, Tomo, there is a question. When filling tone holes, what material do you recommend using for plastic versus wood?
I think first thing, yeah, I think you can do electric tape attached to any smooth surface, and then try it, and then if it's effective, and then do it with I'll do it. I like epoxy, really,
Okay,
and you can do a lot, and sometimes I think that epoxy don't let it go into the bore, right? And I can show you. I think using, right,
there you go.
you see that? Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
that
this is
Teflon
the,
sheet.
yeah. Put this one in there, make sure you're safe. Right. So then, yeah, you have a peace of mind that you can do it.
Okay,
Yeah. And then if you do the epoxy too much, make the file, make the, the stuff, make it straight. So actually, you'll feel more sound is focused. Just the epoxy makes the sound a little rounder, nice and round. Yeah, but just make sure you have a straight part, and then you have more core in the sound.
okay.
Can I ask, what's the thinnest wall thickness that you can have and still use the filling method? Like, this is pretty thin, like, I don't know, not even a 1/10 of an inch. It's more like
Oh,
80 thousandths. Like, what's the thinnest wall that you can
Yeah.
have and still?
I mean, Jeff, you do a lot of crescent work on the saxophones, and first you make something against the tone holes, make sure you have a right curve, and then the saxophone gets pretty thin right there.
Yeah, I'm wondering with the saxophone crescents, I usually just do that with cork, but
Right.
you have enough tone hole that you can set it a little lower so the pad's not going to hit it. But on something like that where your finger's going to hit down in it.
Yeah, think
what
about the
material-
yeah.
that thing wood? Is that what you had there? It's wood?
I mean, clarinet has enough thickness. I mean, more than enough. Think about the E facilitator of a flute. You put the thin disc into the tone hole, right, to create the third octave E better. Sorry for brass people, you don't understand.
But I wonder if you could just completely fill that and re-drill it might be the way to go than trying to just move it down a little bit because it's so thin.
Or attached to a sidewall, and you don't have to do top of the tone hole. It could be side of the tone hole. Side of the tone hole. you are working on intonation. You have to think, you have to put the stuff up on the tone hole, but sometimes bottom, sometimes sideways, like a Wonka baiter.
Nice.
Any other way you can think of?
That's all the questions right now. Anybody, any other questions?
Yeah, this is the spring bender I use now. It's just a brass attached to it. And the
Yeah.
spring goes into the tiny hole. And then you can start doing this. You have a perfect control.
And that's the tool that you are using for those very
Yep.
slight.
Yeah, you don't have to use a plier. This could bend the spring just like that. You see it?
Yeah.
And the brass is very good. That's it.
That works really well too in some tight spots on, particularly on saxophones, where you don't really have room to pull the spring, to bend it, to do anything. So you can sneak that in there and get some tension on it without taking everything apart.
But do you use that for those really intense like compound bends?
Say that again.
Do you use that for those really steep like compound bends where there's two different angles going on in those springs? Is that the tool that you use for that?
No, it's after that I have to make a bend. Yeah. Well, I think it doesn't have to be perfect hole. It just has to be little. Who makes that? Music Medic.
The little
Spring
slotted
bender.
one.
It's just a slot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that can do better. Yeah. I lose. Yeah, it's just a slot. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, and here's my favorite Herf bowl.
Measuring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, what else I can show you?
Tomoji, there was a
Mike
question
Lido.
in the chat. Noticed while saxophone padding, you trim the leather off the back of the pad. Why would you trim the leather off the back of the pad?
Because pads are stable. Don't go anywhere. It doesn't go. I show you. I think I have something. The pad I just removed. Maybe I don't. No, sorry, I can't find it. I think I've thrown it out. Yeah. And okay, so this is a titanium clip. See that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is holding down. It's just a finger pressure with that thin, the solder in between. It kind of melts right away. It's a minimum heat, so it doesn't affect to the other part. So this is, I think this is useful for brass people too.
Yeah.
Have any favorite tools for knock pins?
Knock pins.
Getting them out, putting them
Yeah.
in without marring.
Yeah,
them.
for knock pin, a lot of people, it's a knock, a lot of people knock. It's has to be knock. Knock pin has to be knocked.
We should call them
So-
tap pins.
Yeah, people are like bang pins. They
Yeah.
call the bang pin. So just a knock pin, and then as soon as I see that, I remove the knock pin and then take a new one. I think you can buy a Yamaha knock pin, and then shape just a half part of it with a grinder. Or if you have a tool that has the same taper, just treat the rod and then the outside rod and the inside rod with the reamer, and that gives you, lots of control, so that your knock pin can be relaxed a little more. You can really knock the pin in to the body. Of course, I can't find it.
You know, a lot of people are real afraid the knock pins are going to fall out, so they beat them in too hard.
I know that's a problem.
But then when you take it apart, one, it's hard to get the pins out. And number two, it distorts the hole in the steel. It stretches the top. And then when you slide the keys off, it chews up the keys. So usually when I get the first one off, I'll take a file, I'll feel it. And if the keys that rotate, the unpinned keys, if they don't want to come off, just take a little jeweler file and take that edge off, so you don't chew up the key when you take it off. But that's usually from beating the knock pins in too hard.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah. If you don't have this, just take a knock pin and grind it half. That can do it.
That's a
can
good,
yeah.
that's a good trick that Tomoji's talking about, grinding half of the knock pin off. You think about what's happening, you're creating a cutting surface, but it's the exact same taper. And you can do that with a lot of tools. I've taken pivot screws and brazed them onto the end of a rod and then cut the pivot screw in half, and you can make your own little pivot screw reamer, especially if it's a weird shape. So just file that one away. You could turn anything into a cutting tool.
Yep.
Another thing on the knock pins, when I'm putting something together, particularly if it's like a right hand with a split E and it's a little complicated, I don't tap the pins all the way the first time. Like after I've swedged the keys and maybe everything's going to be too tight when I put it together. So I'll just put it together, put the knock pins in, I'll put it in the jig, and I'll just push down with firm pressure. It holds the knock pin in place so I can check the key, and then I can get them out right away if I need to make an adjustment, so I don't overuse that hole from knocking the pins and knocking them out. So just kind of a quick check, and then once I'm confident I got the right thing, then I'll go ahead and tap them in. And then if you have the kind, like a lot of on the left hand, where one key is held in with a knock pin, and then you've got the other arm is held in with a knock pin down by the bridge key, grab both those pieces and just twist like that. And you can tell, is it solid or is it loose? Because maybe if someone beat the knock pin too hard before and they screwed up the hole, you think your knock pin's tapped in well, but it's really not going to be a stable adjustment. Yeah. So that's enough about knock pins.
Well, can I ask one more question about knock pins?
No, we're done with knock pins. Moving on. No, go ahead.
I just taught that this week. I mean, so the students are all probably like, oh God, knock pins. What tools do you all use to remove knock pins? Do you all
I
just
use a old-fashioned way, let block. Let the key sit on the lead block, and then the needle. Old fashioned. I started using jigs like J.L. Smith cells. It didn't work for me.
I'll have to try the lead. I've never done that. I just always did. I used to have the old Freeze one, and then the JL Smith ones I liked a lot better because it's lighter. You can see in there and has a little place for the flashlight, but it's hard to hold stuff and do it. What I do like on the JL Smith one, on the two main punches, there's that tip. One is slightly concave tip and one is a sharp point. If there's a little bit of knock pin sticking up on the side that you're going to tap, I always like to start with the concave one, which you usually think of it, that's the one for driving it in, but I use that to drive it out because it'll grab the pin, because the pointed one is going to want to jump off of that hard pin and get into the nice soft key material. And so the rounded one will kind of grab that. And even if it's almost flush, when you tap it, it'll kind of tamp down a little spot in the soft material and stay on the hard one. And I'll give it one of those to pop it loose and then finish it with the pointed one.
And here's my. You saw that the plastic I used to hold the
Ah,
wood clamp. So here's the heat, like a jet set, and let the key sit there. It doesn't go anywhere when it's cold. It's maybe much better than a lead block. I don't know. And behind here, I made these two bars. It's Yamaha, and the under E system key goes in there perfectly, and has a two holes.
Nice.
Yeah, two holes right there. So that's the knock pin.
nice.
Yeah, it's just a crazy spot that we have to do because the E system goes under.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where the difficulty happening. But I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, I like that because you get a real custom fit
Yep.
on whatever you want.
Yep. Because I destroyed this piece many times. The plastic.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that one's so much more stable because it kind of custom fit to the key. I like it.
Yep. Yeah, one more thing about reamer is if you have an old rod, you can grind this, like a spoon. So this is your reamer.
Yeah.
We got a question in the chat. Any favorite tricks for stuck pivot screws?
Oh yeah, I just put them in the UPS and send them to Tomoji. It works perfect.
Stuck the pivot screw. I guess if it doesn't move, I think just a drill. I don't know. It's usually heat and oil and tap. But if it doesn't, just destroy it. And I guess that's the only way.
In my old shop, we always had some cheap screwdrivers, and if we had a stuck screw, everybody learned how to grind the blade to fit exactly into the slot. It would no wiggle, it would fit perfectly in there. The better it fits, the better torque you have on that screw. Sometimes you only have one shot to loosen it. So everybody in my old shop, we learned how to kind of shape a concave into the blade and the very tip fit the slot of that screw perfectly, no wobble. And if you do that, you have the best shot of loosening that screw. So it pays to have like a junk screwdriver from Harbor Freight that costs you $2, and that's all you use it for, is when you get that stuck pivot screw, You just have to be patient and grind the tip of that so it fits that pivot screw perfectly. It's dead tight. And you'll have more luck getting out stuck rusted screws. It takes you a long time and it's frustrating because you want to just get it out, but take the time to fit the blade perfectly to the slot of that screw.
So
So,
that reminds me of kind of a concept that you should approach every screw as if it's going to be stuck.
Right.
Because when you get in troubles when you're casual and you say, okay, well, this is not exactly the right screwdriver, but it's close. And I'm going to stick it in there and I'm not really paying attention, not pushing hard. And I turn it and, oh, it's messed up. I better try it again. And then you go after it, and then you murder the screw. And then you say, okay, now I have a murdered screw head and it's stuck. And then now let's start getting serious. Where if you go with, is this thing stuck? And it's doesn't, one, you remember that you don't just casually push a screwdriver on there. You want to put pressure to push that screw in the slot. You want to have a screwdriver that fits the slot real well. And if it doesn't start to budge, back off and think about things before you get it all boogered up, because then that's when it gets hard, is when you have half a screw slot.
Yeah.
Or so I've
People
heard.
screw is small. So we use a small screwdriver like this. So you don't get much torque on it. So I actually made this part thinner so I can do quicker job. But I put this one for the where you need a torque, more power. And then I put this tape for additional power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I think this same idea, making better grip makes you more control, more, yeah,
yeah.
makes sense.
I've had real good luck with PB Blaster as a penetrating oil. I'm sure there's all different ones that people like. That one's been good. I like using the pad cup heater to heat it up to get the oil to go in there. It's also expanding the metal and contracting, and hopefully that's going to help pop things loose. If it's a clarinet post, take the post out of the body. Don't burn the body up heating this post repeatedly. I've seen that done to a plastic clarinet, and it's ugly, and it's pretty harsh on a wooden one. But the another thing that we don't always think of, we're always thinking of turning the screw counterclockwise to take it out. But I like to take this on a stuck one. If you get a real good fitting screwdriver, like Wayne's talking about, push and put pressure on the screwdriver and turn it clockwise, because the slot is, when you have your slot, it's going to be boogered up in the counterclockwise position, but you're going to have usually a pretty good surface in the clockwise position. You're also putting torque on it, which the opposite direction, which might crack things loose. So don't forget about trying to go clockwise just a little bit and then go back to counterclockwise. And sometimes that'll help you sneak it out of there. And tapping on it with a metal hammer, not a plastic. You want some shock to kind of break the corrosion loose.
We got another question in the chat from Ian. I'm not sure who this is to, but it says, do you keep a set of Japanese industry standard screwdrivers?
I have one. Yeah, we used to dot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we learned it. We all learned.
Yeah, I just learned that like 2 years ago. I had no idea. I had this one screwdriver in my bench that came from Yamaha Grand Rapids when I started at Yamaha 15 years ago. And I always wondered why that Phillips screwdriver was just perfect on the key guards screws, and every other Phillips screwdriver just didn't quite feel right. And then I think it was Koya told me about that with the dot. And it's, so even though it's a cross screwdriver, it looks like a Phillips. It's not this, it's not the same taper name as a Phillips. And it's Japanese industrial standard, but you can get them off Amazon or wherever. I use them on my little Toyota truck now, so,
I've been using this.
ooh. That's a ziggurat style.
Yeah, you can fit anything. That's very good.
Wow.
Nice.
Just for your information.
Made, where's that made?
Made in Japan.
Oh,
I'm,
okay,
I'm,
okay.
yeah, I'm made in Japan too.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I'm not mathematically Asian.
Let's see.
Yep. My voice. Yeah,
want-
this is the toothpick. I really recommend to get, yeah. The holding crazy glue.
Is that the one from Stuart McDonald? No.
Yep.
Ah, okay. Thank you. Should we just open this up to just general questions, woodwind brass, or what would you guys like to do?
I am good with anything. Let's just, yeah, it's fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
I have a question, just general. Do you have like a really broad suggestion or recommendation for students that'll be coming out of instrument repair school soon? I don't know what that advice could be, but any words of wisdom in terms of like what would be like your top couple of things to like make sure that we do, or that you could suggest that we do?
Wow. Well, the
You
one
could
thing
go
I
back
always,
in time.
the one thing I always tell students, you know, when you get out there and you start doing repair work, you start seeing your skills getting better and better, and you start to get very proud about the work you're doing and very happy. But all of a sudden, maybe beyond your control, there's an error, something happens, and you end up taking it personally. None of the things you do is really personal. It's hard not to have pride in what you do, but it's also just as hard if you get something that an instrument's returned back because there's a problem. Don't take it personal is my best advice. I mean, it's hard not to feel bad. Take responsibility, but then focus on what needs to be done. I see it trip up a lot of young technicians. They get kind of really bummed out, and then all of a sudden, you know, their work changes. They forget about what's important. So it's a weird thing to say, don't, it's almost like I'm telling you, don't worry about it. And that's not what I'm saying at all here. Take responsibility, but don't let it totally just, you know, make you feel like you're failing here. You know, you have to think about musical instruments at the beginning, even when they're brand new, they are not perfect. They don't play perfectly in tune, you know, and then we as technicians try to take responsibility for everything being right. You know, take pride in your work, but also, you know, realize if something does go wrong, just take responsibility and move on. I see a lot of young techs get really kind of either bummed out or they get hung up on something, or it starts to make them question themselves too much. And that's what you should not be doing, is questioning your ability. You're learning. And it takes a while to really kind of gain a confidence where, you know, you feel totally comfortable. But there also will be a point as customers bring stuff in, they say, well, the teacher says this is wrong, this is wrong. And sometimes as you get a few years into the business, you go into this automatic mode where you just kind of like do things and you don't really start looking at all the details. You start to lose like looking at everything because you start to feel like, oh, I know this. You begin to assume after a little while. So it's hard not to fall in that trap. So look at everything when you're working, especially if you end up making an estimate. You want to try to catch everything right at the beginning because it's very hard to call the customer back, said, well, you know, I told you it was going to be $75 to $80, and all of a sudden, 2 minutes later, you have it on your bench, you realize you missed something big. Pretty hard to call the customer back, say, it's going to be another $40 above what I told you. So take your time evaluating instruments is, I think, one of the better things I can tell you to do.
Yeah,
Well,
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 go ahead.
one last thing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one story. I got into my first shop and I was probably there about a year and a half. Guy drops off a trumpet, has all these things he needs repaired. And then he agrees to the price. He agrees with everything needs to be done. And as he's handing me the trumpet over the counter, just before I'm going to grab it from him, he looks at me and he asks me the question, why should I let you work on this? I was dumbfounded. I did not know what to say in that moment. You know, what do you say? Because I know what I'm doing. You know, I had no words at that point. Every now and then you're going to get some customer that's going to challenge you and you're just not going to have the words. I remember that to this day. I'm trying to think, what would I have said in that moment? I ended up fixing, everything was just fine, but it just totally caught me off guard. So I'm sorry, Jeff, go right ahead.
No, that's a funny one though. Yeah, that really shut you down.
Oh, yeah.
A couple quick things on getting started. One, when you go out and interview for jobs, remember that you are interviewing the company as much as the company is interviewing you. And I know a lot of times we really want to get that first gig, and it's hard when you don't have a deep resume in a particular field and you're kind of ready to jump on anything. But particularly if you're going to move to another city or state, or make some pretty big life stuff, and you're interviewing and say, gosh, I don't know, they seem a little sketchy here, or they don't really have an appreciation for and that's a quick thing. Band instrument repair, some music shops really get it, and they say it's really important that the instruments work well, and this is a service and we can charge our customers for it, and they get it. They totally, and it's a respected craft. Some, it's kind of an afterthought. Oh yeah, I guess we got to get them fixed. We should get somebody that kind of knows how to do that, and we shouldn't have to pay them much. So get a feel for what you're getting into, and if it doesn't sound like a good opportunity, then it's not the right opportunity for you. If it doesn't seem like a good fit, if personality wise, business ethic, business approach, any of that is rubbing you the wrong way, well, really think it through before you jump on that. So yeah, that was my main one.
Well, there's one other thing. I know there's some of you there, maybe you play a certain instrument, a saxophone or this or that, and you've automatically decided that after you leave school, I'm going to be a sax guru. I'm going to be the clarinet god. You'll be surprised. Sometimes you're not the one that gets to decide that. You might one day, you want to be this sax god, and all of a sudden you do this great job on this clarinet, and then that student tells his teacher, and all of a sudden you're getting all these clarinets. something you never, all of a sudden you're the person to come to for clarinets. But you had decided I'm going to be the sax expert. Sometimes you don't get to choose. So the point is, try to do good work on everything, and I'll tell you what, if you're a sax player, that doesn't automatically mean you're going to be a great sax technician, because there's a lot of young technicians that repair to their taste, meaning they repair it to the way they like it. But the more important thing is the customer you're working for. So don't lose perspective of whose instrument this is. So
It's funny you mentioned that, because I run into that. Saxophone is my primary instrument, and it's probably what I do most of my repairs on. But I have to be very careful that and really listen to my customer. If at the professional level, it's all about listening to the customer. And I don't just set it up to my taste. I had an artist leave me a clarinet earlier this week, and she said, "Yeah, do all the springs and pads openings and stuff the way you'd like it." I go, "No, I'm gonna want to do it the way you like it." and I mean, and with saxophones, I've had some that I think, wow, this is really cool, and then I'll set it up the way the artist wants it, just from feedback from them, and I'll test it, and I'll say, "Yeah, it's not the way I like it, but that's the way they like it," and that's so. Yeah, great point that you're doing it for the customer, not for your. And I chuckle sometimes where I'll see some technicians that have made a little name for themselves, but they have their shtick.
yeah,
And they take a clarinet, a saxophone, a trumpet, whatever instrument it is that they are the guru on, and you send it to them, and they put their shtick on it, and it's one size fits all, handful of tricks, and you send it out there. And I think you saw in Tomoji's presentation where he's doing making those crazy resonators that go into the tone hole in the clarinet. It's like if you said, "Okay, this is the magic. Every clarinet from now on, I'm going to put this gadget on the E flat pad of every clarinet I ever work on." Well, there's different brands, there's different models, there's different players. This could be the awesome thing for one player, and it could totally screw it up for another. So don't.
yeah.
Everyone's looking for the magic bullet. That's the next big trick, but it's really about adjusting it to the player.
Yeah, when I first came to the United States, I had no English, zero. And I started working in the music store at the backside. Of course, they don't let me speak to customers, and I have to do a setup instruments. And then one day, "Hey, who set this clarinet up?" And that was a Todd Levy, Milwaukee Symphony principal clarinet player. And it all started there. And the first instrument, I was both working brass and woodwinds. My first customer was Randy Brecker. I was shocked. So I did the dent work, and that was really good. And Michael Brecker came in twice, and Lou Marini from Bruce Brothers. Oh my God! I was like, I am in heaven. So just I knew that if I try to do a good job every time, something happens. So yeah, thanks to land of opportunity here, United States. So I'm very happy. So maybe you are working in the backside of the shop, you don't face the customers at the beginning, but someday your customer is gonna know, "Hey, who did this work?" And then after that, it's your customer, it's your reputation. So yeah.
You just reminded me of something I like to share. When you are interfacing with the customers, as Tomoji said, there's some shops where they hide you in the back and they just sends you the horns and you never interact with the customer, or maybe you're at a hub for a big chain of music stores or something. But if you're in a situation where someone brings in an instrument, they bring you out to interface with the customer and discuss the work, give an estimate and do all that. Best thing that really helped me back when I had my retail shop, usually you're on one side of the counter, the customer's on the other side of the counter, and the instrument's in the middle. And it's kind of like you're having a tug of war to pull their money over on this side of the counter, and they're pulling that way to keep their money on that side of the counter. And it's kind of a confrontational kind of a deal. The best thing that I found, I would walk around to the other side of the counter so the customer and I are shoulder to shoulder as a team, looking at this instrument and looking for the solutions, how their money and my expertise can make this instrument work.
Yeah.
And so you're both on the same team approaching the instrument instead of having a tug of war. So really, really helped a lot. And because I always do, and I think you wouldn't be in this business. You're in it because you want these people to enjoy music. And you know that if you do your stuff, they will have a better musical experience. And then, so you really want to help, and you don't want to unfairly portray yourself as the bad person. You're the good guy. You want to be over there helping them. So, yeah.
Hey, Jeff, I think that's a really good point about walking around the counter. So if you guys ever have a problem with a customer in the future, stand on the same side of the counter as with them and just discuss them. And I think the one important thing, customers that would approach you that have some kind of issue or some kind of problem, whatever they say to you, if they say to you, you know, you were supposed to fix this E flat key and it doesn't work, repeat back to them what they just said to you. So you're saying the E flat key doesn't work. The first thing you want them to get is you are listening to them, because they're expecting a confrontation. They're expecting they need to fight for what they want to get. But if you're just kind of repeating back to them what they're saying, they immediately get this idea you're listening to them. And if you're standing on the same side of the counter, you're kind of both working together and said, let's see what we can do to help you. And it doesn't help to start to go into a defensive mode and try to kind of make reasons why this happened. You know, just go basically explain to them how you're going to help them or how you're going to resolve this, you know, avoid the confrontation. You know, there's stuff that will happen. And, you know, I've had my share, and I've learned various things like what Jeff was talking about, walking around to the other side where you're standing on the same side of the counter with them. So
Just leave your hammer on your bench.
What's that?
Leave your hammer on your bench.
Oh, I mean, things will happen, but you have to express to them you're there to help. So, no, I like your point, Jeff, about walking around to the same side. That's actually really good.
Yeah, it helped me a lot. It helped me a lot. And realize that not everybody is your customer. I had, when I started my own shop, there were a lot of other shops in the area that I felt did very substandard work. And then people started coming to me, and I would charge 4 times as much to repair their flute as the place around the corner, but I'd do 5 times as much work. And some people got it. You have to educate your customer, say, you know what, I'm not just going to take it and bang on it and paste a couple felts in and send it on its way. I'm going to check this, and this. I'm going to make sure all this is working right. And I want this service so it's going to last you at least through the next semester before it needs to be looked at, and not just patch it and get it back out there. And so if you educate your customer about what you're going to do, don't feel that you have to say, okay, I'm gonna do the cheap job, and then you start working on it and you feel bad and you do the good job anyway. And that's not fair to you. So realize a lot of people with just a little bit of education go, okay, I get it. I want this thing to work. Do your thing and let's do it. And other people go, no, 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 I don't want that. You're trying to rip me off. Okay, that's not my customer. If they don't want what I'm, and I've always wanted everybody to like what I do. I think most of us do. And it took a while to realize, you know what? I'm not going to please everybody. And it's better to let them walk out the door before you get involved and start working on it and attempting to charge them for it and doing all this stuff. If you're not on the same, kind of like I said, if you're interviewing your employer, when you're also interviewing your clients. And I know once you have an established career, you're in a better position to interview your clients, and we might be speaking from a little different, but start early and don't cheat yourself trying to get every last little job. I think the long road is the steady road, and that's build a quality reputation, do a great job, and charge what you got to charge to do it. Hi, Alicia. Anything else?
What are y'all's personal favorite tools that you use regularly?
Oh, wow.
Or just like one tool that you like are a big fan of that you can just think of right now?
My Bota dent hammer with the red plastic that I don't even know if he sells it anymore. I mean, absolutely favorite dent tool. I can pretty much do all kinds of things, reshape sax bells, trumpet bells with this hammer, using it by pressing up from the, I do a lot more than just simple dent work with this hammer. So that's mine.
My Straubinger grommet pliers that I showed you last week that are made of unobtainium.
I can't think of anything. Maybe Guido. I'm under the gun.
Nice.
Favorite tools. I will say one thing to a lot of you. If you get to meet customers, just remember, most of the time, you will be the technician, but sometimes you're not. And what I mean by that is sometimes you get a parent comes in, they were told by their teacher, just these 2 keys need to be fixed. And then you see it, you realize all this other stuff is going on. And it starts to become confrontational a little bit because the teacher knows what they're talking about. And you start looking like you're trying to rip them off. So what Jeff was saying about, educating them, showing them, is helpful. But just remember, sometimes you're going to run into difficult situations. Or, when I did my brass clinic not that long ago, I showed you a picture of a trumpet bell crushed around the front S brace, and the owner of the trumpet did not want me to unsolder that brace. In that moment, he was the tech. I was just following what he told me to do. I kind of took it as a challenge to see if I could do it. So. But yeah, you're going to run into weird situations like that where you know what you're doing, but somebody's going to tell you as the technician how to do your job. So Be ready for that.
I think
Can
the
you
best
talk a little
tool is
bit
your ear. Oh, sorry.
about the process for when you're fixing a crack through the body of the clarinet? Like, are you're making
Yeah,
the kind of like a paste
there's
out of the
so many
dust
ways.
and
Mm.
you like fill
That's-
it and then
yeah.
clamp it, or how does that work?
We haven't gotten to that yet because that's in the third quarter. So we will be covering.
Yeah, there's a banding, carbon fiber, wires, heat method, and the I'd like to set the clarinet body on the milling machine, and the crack pin goes in, and the pin doesn't have to go exist other way, so there's only one hole, and I want to control the length. And the pin work was money making for me when when winter season come. Customer calls me, Tomoji, I have a crack. My eyes turned into a dollar sign. It's really okay. That was really money making. Seriously, five pins, $50 each, plus $100.
Oh.
It's just.
Oh, we're not supposed to discuss prices.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
No, for example, back in the days when I was
Hypothetical.
28th Street, so I was charging a lot of money. Oh, it needs 5, 6 pins, and I was calculating money I'm gonna make. That's a bad thing. But so many ways to fix it, and the bad crack opens again, and the disappointing customer. So with here Yamaha, I try not to do too much, and I recommend to have one more set of instruments.
Hey, Tomo, did everybody understand when you were showing crack pinning, you had your mortar and pestle? Does everybody understand what you were doing with that, with the grenadilla wood dust? The mortar and pestle, what you use that for? Did you explain that?
Yeah, it's
Or
just
can you explain that?
making fine powder.
Yeah, he's just taking grenadilla wood dust after it's come off the lathe. He's taking the mortar and pestle and making the grenadilla wood so fine, you can push that into cracks with the thin sino. It penetrates, you get a better fill, but he actually, it's the first time I've ever seen somebody take grenadilla wood dust and grind it even into a finer powder. So that's what that was all about. If you didn't quite understand what that mortar and pestle was for, there's just grenadilla wood in there and he grinds it so fine using that mortar and pestle.
I thought he was filling the holes with oregano, so that explains a lot.
Should try the ramen noodle soup hacks with those top ramen soups that they've been using to fill on YouTube.
Ah,
Yeah.
Nice.
nice.
Question. What is something that you physically started to notice that has become either possibly an issue or just something that has started to affect you as you've gotten older in the field? Like, what's something you wish you had taken more attention to further back physically that you use a lot in the field?
Wait, I'm not quite sure I understand your question.
Okay,
Health and
so
wellness stuff, or
as y'all are becoming more finely tenured, which physical issues are starting to crop up as a result of your work in the field?
What's
Physically.
hurting you?
Tomo, I've got this one. We were talking about the other day. You guys are all pretty young, but when you start hitting around 40, 45, you're going to be sitting there at the bench and say you're working on piccolos. You're going to be staring at it, and one day, somewhere in your 40s, you're going to start looking at it and start to realize you can't see this anymore. You can't see the detail.
Nope.
It happens to everyone. Like you're sitting there one day, you're going, what's going on here? And then it's a trip to the doctor and you're like working on your glasses and doing all kinds of, but it kind of happens to everybody somewhere in their 40s. So something all of you are going to look forward to.
Yeah,
that
it was
you can't
about
see
it was
anymore.
about a month after I turned 40. I remember I used to have really good up close vision. I always had glasses for driving.
Yeah.
I always had very good up close, and I held up a pivot screw, and went to look at the thread. I was gonna, and I said, where did it go? Where did the thread go?
Yes. Yes.
But some good stuff. I think a few years ago, I think Jessica, you were in on that. There was a real good NAPERT clinic on taking care of yourself and health and wellness things. And one of the biggest takeaways I learned from that is don't let your head go like this. That if your head, and they had a diagram, they said if your head is straight up, you know, your head weighs 6 pounds or 8 pounds, or mine's probably about 5.5. Anyway, as you lean forward, it's 20 pounds, it's 30 pounds. And if your head is the leverage pulling on your neck muscles, it's like 60 pounds or something crazy. And you think about our muscles and our body, it's fine to look down and look up. But if you look down for 8 hours a day and your head's just hanging on there, I wondered why I would always go home and my trap muscles here were just, I mean, they were tight for 20 years straight. And you know, never could get that loose. So what I've really purposed to do since then is I put my chair lower and try and have the instrument more in front of me. And if I'm going to look at something, my default is to go into this mode, and I try and hold it up and look straight. Also, a few times a day, roll your shoulders back and squeeze your shoulder blades together. Try and bring your shoulders away from your ears and bring your shoulder blades together. And that just opens up your chest and loosens up your back. That is game changer, because that was the worst thing for me was neck and shoulder stuff. And I really don't have issue with that after making some pretty simple changes. Also chemicals. I think these days people are pretty environmentally sensitive. I came back, I've come from back before that happened. When, you know, grew up chewing on lead paint on a crib, and look at me now. And
Perfect.
but I was always been pretty old school, and I always thought of my skin as completely watertight. And if I had a chemical that I'm dipping stuff in and stuff, I never use gloves. I just put my hand in and do it. And what I didn't realize till years later, oh, I'm fine. Okay. No, I didn't realize till years later was that your skin, it's porous, duh. And so you're absorbing all these chemicals through your skin and you don't realize it. And you're inhaling stuff, and you know, we're around a lot of hazardous stuff. They always come out with stuff that's less hazardous and it never works as good. So there's always that balance. So I need to force myself to remember to put gloves on to handle this. And even though, and I have to realize it's going through my pores and getting in my bloodstream, and usually whatever I'm handling has got all kinds of disclaimers on how bad it is for you. So yeah, gloves. If you're using contact cement, don't sit over the thing and be putting it on and have all the fumes going up. You know, hold it away from you and use it. A lot of times you can take the cork and paint it several times with the contact cement so it's ready to go. And then you can just heat the key and stick it on there and it activates it. And you're not always having all these fumes going on all the time. So yeah, stay away from chemicals, protect your body, keep your neck loose. That's all I got. All right.
Anybody else?
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you. It's really cool to walk into this field knowing that everybody is willing to share some of their information and be willing to pass some of that information on. I think it's awesome to be able to take some of the information that we're learning now and in our futures being able to pass that information forward as well. It's really nice to walk into a field with so much community. And yeah, thank you guys for sharing all this knowledge. Thank you.
Awesome.
Very welcome. Glad you're finding some good ones and glad to hear you'll be passing them on in the future. Yeah.
Yeah, 2008, New York Times did a research, I think. Repair technician is the #1 of a least stressful job in the world. No.
Liar.
Liar. A lot of stress, but we have to raise our position at least better than piano tuner. Piano tuner came in like a 4th, 5th, 5th place. People think we are having fun. We are, but
In a twisted sort of way. We're just learning that there's nothing in the universe that's completely round, completely straight, or completely flat. That's what we're learning.
yeah.
No matter what you do.
I also really appreciate who I work with. Wayne, I asked question today and good answers, and Jeff Koya was, I think Napbird also a great community.
Yeah.
Yep, you learn a lot there.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think about that where Tomoji was talking about, being able to being surrounded with people you can bounce ideas off of. That's one thing I noticed coming from running my own business with multiple technicians to coming in to Yamaha was when it was my shop, I was the last stop on the problem solving chain. And, when people walk up to me like this, they're like, no. And so I always had to figure it out no matter what. And it's been such a blessing since I came to Yamaha 15 years ago that if I get stuck, I've got Tomoji and Wayne and Koya and Bob and all these really sharp people that are going to look at it from a little different angle, or maybe they've had a similar thing and just snap me out of it and get me. And that's one thing, when you go into a shop, a lot of people want to hire you straight out of repair school and you're the repair technician. If you can do it, try and find a shop where you're working with a more experienced technician that's doing good work. Because just because they've been doing it forever doesn't mean they've been doing it good forever. But someone with a quality reputation that you can tuck in behind, because it's a lot of stress by yourself trying to figure it out and be the instant expert straight out of school.
Hey, Jessica, are most of the students going to a NAPERT convention?
Everybody on this screen is.
Okay.
And
One thing that I
yeah.
just want to say is, do not be afraid to ask questions. Long ago, there was this one gentleman, George Jameson, and he was considered one of the icons, the guy who knew a lot about woodwinds. And I remember this many years ago walking up to him. I was kind of questioning about even approaching this guy, but he was the guy everybody was asking all their woodwind questions. And I go up to this man and I ask my question. First thing he does is basically laughs at my face, and he laughs at my question. And I stood there and going, all right, so what's the answer? He was not going to deter me from what I wanted to know. So, don't be afraid to ask questions. Maybe it's a simple thing, but, at this point, you don't know what you don't know. So if you're unsure about something, this is the safest place to find out those answers instead of finding out in the real work world where it affects the customer. So ask those questions. Don't be afraid that it's too basic. It, is something that somebody might laugh at you. I had somebody that was considered a nappered icon just laughing in my face, and I'm going, I don't care. I want my answer. Tell me what the answer is. So that's one thing. I mean, I remember I was not scared to ask those kind of questions. There was stuff I didn't know. I wanted to know. So anyway, that's my little piece of advice.
And when you ask your question, there will be at least 3 to 5 other people that were wondering the same thing, but they were too chicken to ask, and we'll be so glad that you asked. And then there's going to be 2 or 3 others that wish they'd thought of that question, because they go, oh yeah, that's a good one. So I think the more questions, the better. Throw them out there. But you guys have been great, throwing out a lot of great questions, and I think if you continue that, take your tradition of asking questions straight into NAPRT, you'll really have a productive time.
Okay.
Anybody else? Tomoji, thank you for the great presentation on the woodwind stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very
great
much.
job, Tomoji.
Wayne, Jeff, Koya, thanks for joining us and doing this round table with everybody.
Of course.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
And I guess we'll call it a day.
All right.
Hey.
Thank
Right.
you.
Very
Thank
good.
you.